As-salâm alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters in Islam, today I invite you to pay particular attention to this message, for it touches the very essence of our faith and our destiny. Imagine yourself standing at the door of an immense light, a light promised by Allah Himself, a light that is about to open for you, the chosen ones, those whose hearts are sincere and whose faith is unwavering. But before these heavenly doors open, there is one last step, a final test that you must not neglect or delay in passing. This final stage is a crucial moment when everything can change. It is the threshold between tested patience and the promised reward, between the doubt that assails the soul and the certainty that illuminates the heart. Allah calls us, in His infinite mercy, not to lose courage, not to let ourselves be distracted by the temptations of the world, nor by discouragement. For whoever clings to this final stage, whoever perseveres despite the headwinds, will see the gates of paradise open before him. This is not a simple passage, but a profound interior transformation, a purification of the heart and mind. To those who are ready to listen, to those who want to draw sincerely closer to their Creator, this message is a light, a vibrant call to awaken, to arm themselves with faith and will. Do not delay, do not put off until tomorrow what can save you today. In this video, we will explore together what this final stage means, how to recognize it, what obstacles you might encounter, and most importantly, how to successfully navigate it with confidence and humility. Prepare to dive into deep reflection, nourish your soul, and receive Allah's guidance that will lead you to ultimate victory. Stay with me until the end, for this spiritual journey is a key to unlocking the doors to a new life, a life of peace, light, and closeness to Allah. May this message touch your heart, awaken your faith, and give you the strength to never give up. For Allah's chosen ones are never alone. The term last stage evokes a moment of capital importance in the journey of every one of Allah's chosen ones. It is not simply an ordinary stage among others, but the final phase, the ultimate test that precedes the opening of the heavenly gates. Understanding this stage is to grasp the profound reality of faith, a journey that requires patience, constancy, and inner purification. In the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, it is clear that every believer goes through phases where their commitment is tested. The final stage is often marked by an intensification of trials, a testing of sincerity and steadfastness. It is at this time that the believer must demonstrate their spiritual resilience, their total surrender to the divine will, and their refusal to give in to temptations or doubts that might divert them. This final phase is also a time of spiritual preparation, where the heart becomes even purer, where the soul draws closer to Allah with a new intensity. Faith is refined, strengthened, and manifested through sincere actions, assiduous prayer, absolute trust, and the search for forgiveness. The elect are not exempt from difficulties, quite the contrary. But this final stage is a test that distinguishes them, shapes them, and prepares them to receive the supreme reward. It is a time when every effort counts, when every act of obedience brings them a little closer to infinite mercy. Recognizing this final stage also means knowing how to identify the signs that Allah places before us to guide us. A renewed faith despite obstacles, a patience that does not weaken, an inner peace that settles in despite external torments. Thus, understanding the last stage is to arm oneself with new strength, with a firm conviction that the trial is temporary, and that victory is near. It is a call not to weaken, to stand firm in faith, and to prepare one's heart to receive heaven's blessings. The path to this final stage is often strewn with powerful obstacles that seek to distract the chosen one from their divine mission and ultimate goal, to cross the threshold that precedes the opening of the heavenly gates. These obstacles are not simply external trials, but also internal struggles against doubts, temptations, and sometimes even weaknesses of the heart. Understanding these challenges is crucial to avoid falling into the trap of discouragement or misguidance. Among the main obstacles is the weight of worldly temptations that constantly seek to attract attention and distract the believer from his path. The world offers fleeting pleasures, illusory promises, and often illusions of success that may seem more attractive than the spiritual struggle. Yet, Allah warns us against these deceptive enticements, for they distance us from the light and weaken the determination needed to move forward. Then, there is the struggle against doubts that can creep into the mind as the ordeal becomes more intense. The believer may be tempted to question divine wisdom, to doubt the justice or goodness of Allah, especially when the difficulties seem endless. This mental battle is often the most difficult because it directly attacks faith, the cornerstone on which the entire spiritual journey rests. Furthermore, distance from the community or lack of support can also be a hindrance. Isolation weakens, and in these critical moments, the believer needs to be surrounded, encouraged, and guided. Loneliness can give rise to fear, despondency, or the temptation to give up. Mental and physical fatigue also play an important role. The journey to the final stage requires a steadfastness that can seem unbearable. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that the strength of the soul is tested, and where trust in Allah must be further strengthened. It is also essential to recognize the pitfalls of the heart, such as pride, resentment, or anger, which can subtly creep in and undermine the purity of faith. These emotions, if left unchecked, become invisible but powerful obstacles that prevent spiritual progress. Finally, one of the major difficulties is procrastination, this neglect, this delay in doing good or repenting, which can delay the accomplishment of this last step. Time is a precious commodity that many waste, and this loss can be fatal for those who want to attain proximity to Allah. In the face of these obstacles, the key is vigilance and self-awareness. We must learn to detect these pitfalls and strengthen our faith through prayer, reading the Quran, and constant remembrance of Allah. It is essential to rely on patience, that essential virtue that sustains the believer when everything seems to be falling apart. The Prophet said that faith is constantly subject to tests, and that whoever perseveres to the end will be rewarded. This reality teaches us that obstacles are not signs of giving up, but opportunities for greatness. Tests which, once overcome, lead to divine satisfaction. Therefore, recognizing these obstacles also means learning to transform them into strengths. Temptation becomes an opportunity to strengthen the will. Doubt, a call to renew knowledge. Fatigue, an invitation to rely on Allah's mercy. Thus, victory is not found in ease, but in the struggle against these obstacles, in the constant effort to move forward, despite everything. It is this struggle that makes the believer great and prepares his soul for the encounter with his Lord. The final step before heaven opens its gates requires total submission and absolute trust in Allah. The spiritual reality, though seemingly simple, represents a profound commitment that transforms the soul and opens the door to divine mercy. The submission referred to here is not limited to a formal act, but encompasses every thought, every word, and every action of the believer who chooses to surrender entirely to Allah's perfect plan. Total surrender is the abandonment of ego, doubts, and resistance. It is accepting that Allah's will always prevails over our personal desires, even when that will seem difficult to understand or bear. The believer who reaches this level of deep trust is freed from the burden of anxiety and uncertainty, for he knows that everything that happens to him is part of a perfect design of infinite wisdom. In the Quran, Allah invites believers to place their trust in Him firmly, and put your trust in Allah, and Allah is sufficient as a protector. Surah An-Nisa 4:81. This word is a promise that sincere trust will never be betrayed, and that Allah supports those who put their hope in Him. The Prophet Muhammad is the perfect example of this total submission. Despite hardships, injustices, and suffering, he never doubted or resisted God's plan. He surrendered entirely to Allah's wisdom, accepting each event as a step toward fulfilling the sacred mission entrusted to him. This confidence is also expressed through patience, perseverance, and constancy in worship. Even when the doors seem closed, even when the signs are slow to manifest, the believer remains steadfast, knowing that Allah's promise is true and that help will come at the most opportune time. Complete submission also eliminates stress and fear related to the future. The believer no longer worries about what might happen because he knows that everything is in the hands of Allah. This inner peace is an immense blessing that accompanies those who have reached this stage. But this submission does not mean passivity. It is an active commitment, a constant struggle against the inclinations of the heart and the temptations of the devil. It is a constant work where the believer seeks to align his actions with the divine will, to purify his intention, and to continually draw closer to Allah. It is important to emphasize that total surrender does not come all at once, but is built through knowledge, reflection, prayer, and remembrance. Each sincere effort grows this confidence, which becomes a fundamental pillar for facing the final stage. This complete surrender also allows one to receive divine guidance in its most subtle forms. When the heart is freed from doubts and resistance, it becomes more receptive to signs, inspirations, and the light of Allah. This deep connection is essential for taking the final step and opening the gates of paradise. Thus, at this stage, the believer finds himself in a position of unique spiritual strength, able to face the challenges with serenity, withstand trials with courage, and move forward with renewed faith. Total submission and trust in Allah are not signs of weakness, but rather marks of wisdom and greatness. Strengthening one's faith and fortifying one's heart are essential steps to avoid faltering during this crucial final phase. Faith, like a tree, requires constant care, deep roots in divine truth, and protection from life's storms. When firmly anchored, it becomes a source of strength, peace, and perseverance in the face of trials. To strengthen this faith, several concrete means are essential. Regular prayer occupies a central place. It is the direct link between the servant and his Lord, a privileged moment where the heart is soothed and enlightened. Prayer must be performed with awareness, humility, and sincerity, for it is from this that one draws the spiritual energy necessary to face challenges. Reading and meditating on the Quran are also fundamental. This sacred book is an infinite source of light, wisdom, and practical guidance. By regularly immersing themselves in it, believers nourish their souls, strengthen their understanding, and find answers to any doubts or difficulties that may arise. The Quran is a living guide that illuminates the path and renews faith. Dhikr, or remembrance of Allah, also plays a crucial role in this fortification. Repeating the names of Allah, remembering His greatness, and expressing gratitude soothes the heart, drives away bad thoughts, and creates a spiritual atmosphere conducive to serenity. Dhikr is nourishment for the soul, protecting and uplifting it. Fellowship is another important pillar. Surrounding oneself with brothers and sisters in the faith who share the same spiritual goals creates a stimulating and secure environment. These relationships allow for exchange, mutual encouragement, the gentle correction of mistakes, and the strengthening of collective resolve. Moreover, consistency in good deeds, even small ones, is a sign of living faith. Charity, helping others, and sincerity in commitments all contribute to purifying the heart and strengthening the relationship with Allah. These acts are concrete testimonies of faith being expressed and growing. It's also essential to practice regular introspection, to take stock of one's weaknesses and progress. This honest work allows one to avoid pride, remain humble, and correct oneself before flaws become insurmountable obstacles. Being honest with oneself is key to not weakening. Finally, prayer for Allah's guidance and protection must be constant. Asking for His light, help, and mercy is an act of humility that strengthens the bond with Him and opens the heart to transformation. Thus, strengthening one's faith is not a one-time event, but a daily commitment. It is a path that requires patience, discipline, and a sincere love for Allah. By nurturing this bond, the believer prepares to successfully take the final step, armed with strong faith and an unwavering heart. There are profound, subtle, and powerful signs that testify that the gates of heaven are beginning to open for Allah's chosen ones. These signs are not necessarily spectacular in the eyes of the world, but they are extraordinarily meaningful to one whose heart is awakened. They are like silent calls from the divine, like heavenly whispers that say to the believer, "You are near, do not falter." The first of these signs often manifests itself as an inner peace that cannot be explained. Even in the midst of trials, losses, or waiting, a strange tranquility descends upon the heart. It is not a human relief, but a spiritual tranquility. The soul, though tested, feels enveloped, protected. It is a clear sign that Allah supports and accompanies. The impasse often comes after a period of inner turmoil, like a lull after a storm. It cannot be explained. It must be experienced. It is the fruit of submission, constancy, and acceptance. Another sign that the doors are opening is a keener, clearer intuition. The believer begins to distinguish between what is good for him and what is harmful. He becomes more sensitive to the signs of Allah in his life. Words heard at the right time, inspiring dreams, coincidences that are not, but reveal a divine orchestration. This is not superstition. It is spiritual perception refined by the purification of the heart. The more the heart is purified, the more it hears. Allah guides the sincere seeker, and this guidance sometimes manifests itself in forms that only an awakened soul can recognize. There is also this sensation that the heart becomes more tender. The chosen one feels a new mercy for others, a deeper need to be generous, patient, and loving. He becomes quieter, less reactive, more inclined toward gentleness and listening. He no longer seeks to be right, but to please Allah. He forgives more easily. He avoids quarrels. He flees from what might feed his ego. His behavior changes, not out of strategy, but because Allah has begun to polish his heart. This polishing is also this new ability to endure what was once unbearable. The trial no longer weighs in the same way. It is no longer seen as a punishment, but as a passage, a preparation, a proof of divine love. For Allah only tests those He loves. And when the soul understands this, it stops fleeing from difficulties. It embraces them with dignity, because it knows that they precede deliverance. The more pronounced presence of gratitude is also a powerful sign. The believer begins to give thanks for everything, for the delays, for the no's, for Allah's silences. He stops constantly questioning. He observes, he meditates, and he gives thanks. This posture transforms everything. Sadness becomes an opportunity for supplication. Waiting becomes a lesson, and even lack becomes a reminder that only Allah can truly fulfill. When the gates of heaven begin to open, there are also concrete openings in life. A heart that returns after a separation, a debt that is erased without explanation, a long-forgotten prayer answered. These blessings are not always massive, but they are clear and precise. They come like messages. See, I heard you. And then there is this new outlook that the chosen one has on the world. He sees life differently. He is no longer dazzled by what glitters. He is no longer impressed by the success of others. He no longer chases after honors. He seeks light, presence, peace. He becomes more sensitive to the beauty of simple things. He cries more often before the Quran. He stands up more easily to pray. He laughs less at the world and more from the heart. This profound change is a sure sign that something is opening up in the invisible. Finally, there is a moment, sometimes brief but intense, when the chosen one feels a call in his heart. You are ready. It is not a voice. It is a powerful feeling, a vibration, a presence. And this moment remains engraved. It is as if Allah is making His servant understand that the test is coming to an end, that dawn is breaking. And from that moment on, the chosen one begins to walk differently. With less fear, more faith. He stops doubting his destiny. He stops resisting. He becomes a stream following the divine current. But vigilance is also required. Sometimes, just before the door opens, the ordeal intensifies. Attacks multiply. Injustice strikes. Allah's silence seems heavier than ever. Make no mistake, this is precisely the final veil. Whoever crosses this final line, without giving up, with their tongue still in dhikr and their heart still turned towards Allah, will see the light. Elected officials sense these signs. They don't always explain them, but they experience them. And if they continue to move forward despite the storms, it's because they know deep down that the doors are already opening. So now, what are you going to do, chosen one of Allah? You who have received all these reminders, these signs, these heavenly invitations not to delay. This is not just another message. It may be the last warning before full opening. You no longer have to doubt. You no longer have to wait. The time for standing still is over. There remains only one step, one movement, one sincere intention, and that step can set everything in motion. You have heard that the gates of heaven are ready to open. You have understood that the final step is in your hands. But what you must understand now is that it is not Allah who delays. It is man who hesitates. It is you who must now respond. For Allah has already traced the path, illuminated the way, prepared the blessing. He has already chosen you. He has already decided. But He is waiting for you to say, "Here I am, Ya Rabbi." This video is not news. It is a call, a gentle but firm cry from the Divine who desires your good, your transformation, your elevation. It is not a spiritual theory. It is a reality knocking at your door. Allah has seen you persevere. He has seen you fall and rise again. He has seen you struggle against yourself, against the world, against silence. And today, He announces to you, you are one breath away from victory. So don't put it off any longer. Don't let Shaitan steal this moment from you. Don't let comfort or fear lull you to sleep. Get up. Return to Allah with a broken but sincere heart. Reconcile with your faith. Leave behind the invisible chains. You no longer need to understand every detail of God's plan. You just need to trust. Yes, this is the last step. And yes, it is difficult. But remember, those who give up at this precise moment are those who were closest to the light. You're not far away, you're kneeling before the door and it's already creaking. A sigh of faith, a sincere act, a tearful prayer, and it will open. So move forward. Move forward with faith. Move forward with certainty. Move forward like a servant who knows his master has never forgotten him. Allah is waiting for you, do not delay. Heaven is ready to open.